into the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism and event sectors continues. Please ensure that mobile phones have been switched to silent and that background noise is minimised. I wish to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I welcome any members of the public that are watching via our live broadcast. I'd like to introduce my fellow committee members that are present here today, Mr Talamas, Mr Davis, Mr Lovell, Ms MacArthur and Mr Tim Quilty, who's on Zoom. Dear witnesses, all evidence taken at this hearing is protected by parliamentary privilege as provided by the Constitution Act 1975 and subject to provisions of the Legislative Council standing orders. Therefore, the information you provide during the hearing is protected by law. However, any comment repeated outside the hearing may not be protected. Any deliberately false evidence or misleading of the committee may be considered a contempt of Parliament. All evidence is being recorded and you will be provided with a proof version of the transcript. Following the hearings, transcripts will ultimately be made public and posted on the committee's website. We welcome your opening comments and ask that they be kept to a maximum of 5 to 10 minutes. Could you please give your names for the benefit of our Hansard team and then begin your presentation? So, who would like to go first?
My name's Peter.
Yeah, Peter Marco.
Peter Marco, yeah.
From Phase Shift.
From Phase Shift Productions, Cheltenham. I've worked with Phase Shift for 17 years and before that in the live music industry for 38 years, primarily in lighting, as a lighting director and now as a repair technician. Firstly, I'd like to thank the committee for taking the time to listen to and understand the dire economic situation that the live music and event production companies and their employees and touring crew find themselves in due to the total seizing of international music concerts through the closure of international borders since the COVID-19 pandemic began in 2020 March. I sincerely hope you can instigate a fast recovery program to help save the live music industry in Victoria and the billions of dollars it generates towards the Victorian economy. Victoria, Australia is renowned as one of the finest hubs in the world for arts and in particular for live music, such as music concerts. And they generate over $10 billion a year to Victoria's economy pre-COVID conditions. So it's an important industry. Companies which supply the equipment for live music concerts in Victoria, these are the companies that you see pushing all the black boxes onto stages at festivals, arenas, sporting events, corporate events, as well as transport and specialised crew and highly professional staff have all generated very little or no income since March 2020, mainly no. These businesses and their workers are the backbone of the industry that gives Victoria its competitive advantage when it comes to our reputation of staging major events and presenting live music better than anyone else in Australia and amongst the best in the world. They're highly specialised crew and staff who make up this industry of the supply production equipment. This includes lighting, audio, staging, all the things that go together to make the concerts possible. There's production managers. They're the people who put together the jobs, get the quotes. They draw up and plot out floor layouts using computer programs and software. They oversee the setup of the concerts and the crew and on-site and beforehand. So they're busy for weeks, sometimes months before an event takes place or a live concert takes place. Then there's the audio and lighting operators and directors who are involved. They program the shows, they operate the lighting and they control the sound desks and the lighting. They tune the audio systems. They mix on stage in front of house to make the sound wonderful. The same sort of people who have tuned your mics so that they can hear us today. You know, the industry's vast. Then there's the repair technicians who look after all the millions of dollars worth of state-of-the-art, very specialised equipment that can't be used in really any other industry. They look after the equipment, make sure it's working and safe and the events take place. There's mechanical engineers who are involved in our business as well who build specific infrastructure needed for specific events which you can't go out and buy off the street. They build the road cases that all our equipment gets carried in and goes to and from the different venues. There's riggers who hang all the equipment off the roof and make sure it's all safe. They hang all the trussing and the lighting, the PAs. There's stage riggers who put the stages together that the artists perform on. It's a huge industry, and they're all very specialised professional people. Loaders who unload the trucks and load the trucks and help put the gear on the stage. truck drivers, it goes on. And then there's all the infrastructure suppliers as well, who supply the seating, the marquees, the decor, etc., who are a larger part of the whole thing that's happening. It's a massive industry. All of these specialised professional staff are trained in occupational health and safety. They ensure that all production equipment is installed in a manner which keeps artists, staff and the general public safe at all times. Support from the federal government through JobKeeper payments help to keep many of the equipment supply companies afloat, to keep some of their professional, specialised permanent staff on a part-time basis and help from the state government through tax breaks help with company overheads. So it's all been a help what's happened so far. But the schemes such as Sounds Better Together shows and things like that boost the morale of the staff and the people who have been sitting at home for months doing nothing. They were able to go out and actually work in their fields for the first time in months, which sort of really helped. Those things are great. But with the ending of JobKeeper, the live music and entertainment equipment supply companies desperately need support, urgent support, to help keep their large overheads balanced while international borders are closed and work is minimal. There's just no work coming in, you know. We need support to pay in permanent and casual crew and employees money to keep our factories and businesses viable by allowing them to work enough each week to maintain the millions of dollars worth of specialised equipment that we have, and to actively seek out and obtain any new work that might become available while the pandemic's still on. If we can't afford to employ them to work, we can't look for the work. This will allow live music supply companies and their very specialised employees to be primed and ready when international borders open permanently and after worldwide vaccine for the pandemic takes effect and everything comes back to normal. In many ways, look, our problem is your problem. While it may be easy enough to open the door of a venue, unless Victoria retains the staff, the businesses and the equipment that these venues used to make safe and specialised events take place, the risk that Victoria losing its hard-won reputation for being national and international leaders in the way the major events are delivered is a real risk, that we could actually lose this status that we have. And we don't want to do that. And the specialised people who are dedicated staff, who are passionate about what they do, they don't want that to happen either. The money returning to the Victorian economy from our industry over future years will vastly exceed the amount of the cost to support our industry now, and Victoria will hold on to its iconic and economic status as a world leader in live music and the arts. This is part of Victoria's culture and vitally economy, which we can't afford to lose. Everyone needs to go out and enjoys the release of going and seeing live music. It's something that we all have enjoyed for many years since the Sunbury Pop Festivals. It's been going for a long, long time in Victoria. If there's no support for us and the live music event supply companies close down, the vast and critical knowledge from our specialist professional staff will leave the industry and find employment elsewhere, or they'll leave the state of Victoria to continue their careers and opportunities where it's more viable, like overseas or interstate. In fact, I know some people who have already gone interstate to work because there's no work available here. Whether they come back or not, we don't know. And they're very important people in the industry. Critical assets, specialised equipment, which companies like us have, which is necessary for concerts and other events to occur in the state, will be sold off to reduce debt, but it won't help because they'll be sold at minimal prices, so that companies will still incur debts for decades to come, because there's a lot of equipment that is very specialised, and if it's sold off because a company's going under, it's not going to make the sort of money that it's worth. And people are going to be picking it up at rock bottom prices. This is an important thing. So if companies fold now, they're not just folding; they're going under with huge amounts of debt. So the critical assets will be sold off, leaving massive shortcomings in Victoria's live music and arts event sectors. It'll take years, if not decades, to rectify. This will certainly lose Victoria its cultural reputation in live music and arts and events as a hub of excellency, nationally and internationally, as well as being economically disastrous for all of us in Victoria and the state. While there have been programs at a state and federal level to help the industry broadly, there remains a critical misunderstanding of exactly who we are in the industry and what support is required to keep this vital component of the industry afloat. Live music and event equipment supply companies are the foundation, or the structure, if you like, of all music events, concerts, theatre, comedy, entertainment, festivals, corporate events, sporting events, private events, some film and television events. They're all built on it. To put it simply, without the equipment that we supply and the dedicated and professional staff that make it work, the events won't take place anymore. They won't have the equipment to hire, to use. So basically, it's great supplying event companies and people like that with some form of support, but if we're not supported as well, they've got nothing to hire to put their events on. I'd like to introduce Laurie. He's the director of Phase Shift, and he'll provide you some more detailed information about the challenges that are keeping us going, the challenge of keeping us going through the pandemic, and what business owners and other workforces have had to do to survive the pandemic so far, and how we're managing to only just stay afloat. So,
really appreciated your quite comprehensive overview of the industry and how your business is being affected, Marco. And obviously you're a technician, so you've got experience in the actual field of carrying out the work. Laurie, do you have anything further to add? If not, I might give Rocky an opportunity as well to say a few words from Expone.
A little bit of stuff I'd like to say, if that's
sure.
okay.
If you could.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, my name's Laurie Verdecki. I'm actually the director of Phase Shift Productions and the founder of it, Phase Shift Productions. Just as a brief overview, Phase Shift started as a hobby in the garage. Like many businesses, originally I was doing mobile discos for friends' 18th, 21st, local footy cups, school, school socials, lots of functions. I started working in the band pub scene in Melbourne, doing lights for bands, working regularly around town, gradually buying my own lights and then hiring them back to the bands that I worked with. This grew into a full-time career and soon expanded into the business that we have today with full-time staff and numerous casuals and contractors on our books. The company has become a major supplier of lighting equipment and crew for touring, concerts, festivals, corporate events, theatres, school productions, outdoor lighting and anything where lighting may be required. So the weekend of March 13, 2020, like many other companies, saw all of our work start to get cancelled, where it became where it came to a standstill. Many clients thought that their jobs would still go ahead, but the dominoes all started to fall very quickly. Even had one client send me a text on that late on the Sunday night, still hanging on as they were still hopeful that their job would go ahead, but it didn't happen. So gradually the job board with all the confirmed jobs got erased until there was nothing. We even had a tour on the road running at the same time that had already performed several shows, and they cancelled mid-tour, and the artist then got on a plane and flew home. So we've had to face many challenges due to the effects of the pandemic, and basically this includes all of our income falling to zero, survival of the company, how we are able to support our staff, like Peter, and our families, and meeting all of our current financial commitments. So early on, we realised the situation was getting worse. We had a meeting and we've decided to reduce the hours of our full-time staff so we could plan for the oncoming months, which was unknown, ahead based on reduced expenditure, outgoings, and what we had left in the kitty. Our staff needed to get clarity for their own future and the effect it had on their own lives and well-being, and how they were going to help to support their partners, their families, and their reduced wages moving forward. Another issue was explaining to the banks and the finance companies that we had about our leases, that we had no work, no income, and so making repayments might be an issue down the track. Many of them were understanding to a point and were able to give us the 6 months payment pause, but now they're all starting to knock again at the door, and the hibernation period is nearly finished, and they want their payments again. This is a very big challenge without work. So also, I think the lack of recognition from the government, both state and federal level, of the importance of the entertainment industry and its roles it plays to the economy has been major overlooked. Now more than ever, under the current restrictions, there's a huge need for people to have music and arts in their lives, as Peter said, to have an outlet, even for a few hours, just to get out of the COVID norm that was their restrictions. We've had a bit of support from the federal government with the tax breaks and the injection of subsidies from the state government, which we are very grateful for. But our industry especially needs all the financial assistance it can get and will be the last ones back to full capacity. We were able to get JobKeeper for our full-time staff, which eased the weekly stress of finding money to pay for them. I think most of our casuals and contractors that we had on the books were able to get JobKeeper through their own channels, but that was also a concern of mine for their own welfare, because they were reliant on us as a supplier for their income. Today, we actually received our final JobKeeper payment. So the onus of keeping my staff is totally on my head, especially when I've had staff like Peter for over 17 years and my general manager, who's also been with me for 22 years. But as time goes on, no JobKeeper or financial assistance, this is going to make things a lot tougher for the business to survive. There's a lot of prospective quotes for the second half of 2021, but unfortunately, till the easing of the state and international borders, especially the international borders, there's not a lot of solid commitments for events or bookings. So diversification. I had to look outside the box of what we could do to generate some of our income. We have a few trucks in our fleet that we were able to get logistics work subcontract into a couple of transport companies around Melbourne. So JobKeeper has paid for our staff to drive the trucks, to help drive for the trucks, and the income from the logistics company has helped cover our overheads. However, again, without JobKeeper, this will no longer be a viable option. At present, I personally am driving our prime mover 3 days a week to supplement our overheads as well and to keep the business afloat. This has now become a great help as we still have expenses that need to get paid every month, like rent, vehicle registration, insurance, utilities, etc. Also, working for someone else outside our industry, I've gained a realisation of how special and niche our industry actually is. I think we're very privileged to be in an industry where people are passionate about their job, love the environment, and have a common goal about making the show happen. I actually miss the buzz of the factory, the people that they in it, and the music they play at times, and the life they bring to our factory and to the business. I feel very honoured to have the support of my staff and for the welfare of its company, and also and its continued existence after this setback. Also want to thank my industry peers and friends who have been calling on me to make sure I'm doing okay, because it's very easy to get overlooked. Just a couple of final points I've got. I've actually brought some supportive documents today to show how the COVID pandemic has impacted our business, which basically shows we're at least 90% down on our turnover. So if you guys would like to see them,
yes,
I'm happy to hand them out. Obviously, I'd like that not to be in the public domain.
Could we just maybe pass the Secretariat then? Everyone please hand these back to the Secretariat after the committee meeting. So we'll look at it here and we'll hand it back to the Secretary, and if anyone's private business, I understand.
Yeah, if anyone's interested,
confidential.
I can email.
Yeah.
If the Secretariat needs more, they'll come.
Yeah, we'll contact you if we need further information. But thank you for that, Laurie. It's very touching and personal effect it's had you but also your staff as well. Do you have just a couple more points, and I might give Rocky a brief opportunity as well. Sorry, Rocky, you've been patiently waiting.
I'm talking a bit. So obviously, as we've tried to highlight, the reduction of our major core of work is basically the closures of international borders. That's caused the major impact of income being highly reduced.
Yeah.
And an knowledge of our production company and other companies like ours is a critical part of a supply chain for the entertainment industry. So without us, it's like having no Linfox in the transport industry. So basically, an example of this, like at Rod Laver or the Palais Theatre, does Jimmy Barnes set up his own speakers and his own light show? as Peter said, it takes a lot of people to
A lot of people, as you've already heard today, I think.
Yeah, we do.
Thousands of
to bring
people
people
involved in
in,
an event.
and it takes a lot of people in the background as well.
It's also the infrastructure behind it, the people that it employs. You know, it's a huge industry.
So the principal focus for us is to continue our business and to retain our staff, including the full-time, the part-time, the subcontractors. And as Peter's also said, retention of highly skilled workers that are very specialised in the field, many having to find work outside our industry just to survive. Just as an example, I've had my hire manager who was with me for 19 years, basically with the whole COVID situation, came in and had to reassess his life and basically has taken a job as a mature age electrician apprenticeship. Which is a real blow because after that sort of time, and I could not say to him, please stay, because I didn't have any work to offer him, which is very disheartening, and it's a very big challenge. So yeah, basically the critical things for Victorian government, I find, is to save face as the entertainment capital of Australia, not only from the economic point of view, but from our own reputation. So again, I thank you for letting us have a speak.
Thank you, Laurie, for that. The human impact as well. Rocky from Expone, would you like to add a few comments to the effect it's had on your sector? Obviously, probably a lot of stuff overlap between the businesses, I'm guessing, the impacts.
But our businesses are very different, as I'll explain. I'll just introduce myself. My name is Rocky Brizana. I'm the CFO of Expone, and I've been working for the company for over 25 years. So Expone has been supplying products and service to the exhibition and conference industry for the past 35 years. We have branches in Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. Prior to COVID-19, our Victorian branch in our peak periods employed 65 permanents and 40 casual staff, supported by over 150 contractors. Nationally, we employ 180 permanent staff and 120 casuals, plus lots of contractors, as we've been discussing. Our core business is building the exhibitions and events and trade show conferences in all of the venues around Australia, including Victorian venues. We supply the products to build the entire show. For example, we take an empty hall at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre and build the complete exhibition, trade show or conference with our products. From the carpet on the floor to the booths, custom stands, lighting, signage, audio-visual and special features. Expone is solely reliant on the exhibition industry. We build some of the biggest exhibition and conference throughout Australia, and during the busy times, we can build up to 30 exhibitions and conferences in a month, just in the state of Victoria. The exhibition and conference industry is a multifaceted entity. It involves many forms of events, from trade shows, exhibitions, conferences like the Home Show, National 4x4 Outdoor Show, Read and Gift Fair, the PAX Australia, and many, many more. The exhibition industry is a very important and significant contributor to the state of Victoria. And Victoria has invested significantly in providing some of the best infrastructure in Australia to hold exhibitions, which is the MEC, which is the Melbourne Convention Exhibition Centre, is a world-leading venue. When you consider that all exhibition and conventions require a venue to host them, a labour to build them, exhibitors to attend them, and lastly, attendees or delegates to visit them. All of these participants travel from not just Victoria, but from overseas and interstate. So you can see how the local economy will benefit from all the auxiliary services, such as a travel, service, transport, airlines, accommodation, restaurants, cafes, and most likely attendees will stay on extra amount of time to visit some of the local attractions in the area, which has a significant impact on the tourism industry. When the arrival of COVID pandemic, we were one of the first industries to be closed. We had to stand down all staff on the 18th of March 2020. As I previously mentioned, our business was delivering on average of 30 exhibitions a month in Victoria. Then in March 2020, it went down to 0 shows a month. As a result of COVID, for the past 13 months, we have only built 3 exhibitions in Victoria, which represents 4% of our pre-COVID annual sales. And next financial year, we are currently forecasting, or we're hoping, that Victorian sales to be 40% of our pre-COVID annual sales. In Victoria alone, we have stood down 61 permanent staff. We have a core team of 6 people currently working and planning for the return of exhibitions. This is happening in New South Wales and Queensland, and we are seeing more work in those states. But unfortunately, Victoria has been the hardest hit of all our branches. The industry is very slowly returning. However, there is a significant lack of confidence from exhibitors, organisers, and exhibitors and visitors. International exhibition and conferences will be non-existent to, at least in my opinion, 23 due to obvious reasons. With the instability of state borders and the risk of being trapped interstate, many participants are hesitant to commit to interstate exhibitions. Many exhibitions and conferences involve participants from all states, which is why it's vital our state borders to remain open for industry. An example of this is April of this year, which is this month. We were building a national conference in Brisbane, which was due to open on the 12th of April. An outbreak of COVID resulted in a 3-day lockdown in Brisbane. Interstate exhibitors began cancelling due to the uncertainty, which ultimately resulted in the cancellation of the live conference. As a result of the cancellation, Expone lost $50,000 in pre-show planning expenses. Organisers and exhibitors also incurred expenses that are not refundable. With this in mind, it is easy to see why the industry is nervous to commit to large or smaller events in the current unstable environment. One of the unfortunate consequences Expone is facing is that we'll be inheriting a COVID-19 debt. The challenge we have is we need to keep this COVID-19 debt as low as possible, because each month, whilst our sales are non-existent, the debt accumulates. And if it becomes too high, it'll become unserviceable. Over the last 14 months, we have worked very hard to remain open. We've utilised all our cash reserves. We negotiated rent relief from our landlords, negotiated settlements with our suppliers. All staff who are currently working on heavily reduced pay. Due to pre-COVID financial results, we have received very little support from governments, including the Victorian, New South Wales and Queensland governments. We did receive assistance with JobKeeper, but other than being able to stay in contact with staff, it did not contribute anything to the business, as we had no way of generating income from it. Employers with an annual Victorian taxable wage of up to $3 million are eligible to have their payroll tax for the 2019-20 financial year waived. This is a great initiative, but because our Victorian taxable wages were greater than $3 million, we were not eligible for this program, even though we've lost 100% of our revenue. Our industry needs targeted and temporary support. Without financial relief, Expone and the chain of key suppliers will find it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to survive the next 6 months, especially in Victoria. Temporary and targeted support is required for our industry, and we recommend the following actions to be considered. For businesses who have continued to experience a loss of more than 50% of pre-COVID revenue, to provide a wage subsidy for full-time employees, rental assistance, because we need to keep our warehouses open, have some form of financial grants to assist our cash flow, and review the payroll tax waive scheme. It would be nice if we were included in that. For the Victorian government or federal government to underwrite insurance in the occurrence of a cancellation of an event due to COVID-related risk. In conclusion, I would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to the current plight we find ourselves in the exhibition, event and conference industry. I'm sure that if we all work together, there will be a solution that not only will benefit our industry, but especially will benefit the people of Victoria and the rest of Australia. Our staff, clients, suppliers and landlords have made their contribution. We now ask the Victorian government to do the same to complete the circle of support. This will help this 35-year-old business survive, and once again, we'll be able to contribute to the Victorian economy and actively employ many hardworking Australians.
Thank you, Mr. Brasano. That was very informative, and it's I realised the size of the business, employing 180 people permanently before the pandemic. So it's an amazing business, and obviously it's probably been one of the most greatly affected. I might start off by handing over to Miss Bev MacArthur on our committee to ask the first question. Please go ahead, Ms. MacArthur.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for your very heartfelt and honest submission to the state your industry's in. It's an appalling situation brought about by government decision, actually. And who knows well, this government's decided that they need emergency powers through till December. So at any stage they could still lock us down. We haven't had a case for 45 days. But, you know, how long are we going to be in this situation of uncertainty when we need to get Victoria back up and running? There's been a far different approach in New South Wales, we've noticed, to how business and industry can keep going. So really, sure, you might need some immediate targeted financial assistance, but don't you really need state premiers to be able to say, well, we're going to have to manage this pandemic without these constant lockdowns and changes of rules and regulations and requirements, because you can't have a situation where you need to go interstate for work or your workers need to travel interstate for an event and then get locked down in 2 weeks of quarantine. We surely have to end this scenario so that everybody's business can get up and running and operate obviously in a safe manner, but without these instantaneous lockdowns with very little notice that affect your industry so severely.
I totally agree with that. We definitely need all the state premiers to have a common ground of keeping the industry or the borders open, because the minute the borders do close, the lack of confidence in our industry is paramount. The exhibitors just will not attend, and organisers are scared to even hold an event, as it takes many months, if not years, to hold a show. So once the state governments have their act together, it doesn't just automatically, we just turn on the switch and next day we'll have a show or an exhibition at the Melbourne Convention Centre. It does not happen. It takes time and the confidence needs to be there. So obviously that is vital, but companies like us, we just can't wait around forever for that to occur. We've already been waiting for the last 13 months. We've used all our cash, and decisions need to be made. What do we do with our business moving forward? And we know the work's going to be there in the future, but we would like to be there in the future. And one way to do that is, unfortunately, I know governments don't like it, but we need some support financially. I'm the CFO. I'm a bean counter. I know where the money's going. And there's no money coming in, all money's coming out, and it's been going out for the last 14 months, and we need something to steady the ship, as it were.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think, we're in the same sentiment as Rocky as well. It's basically we need an injection now. We can't sit around waiting.
There's companies like us closing as we speak.
The other side of the coin is that our business is very seasonal too. Yeah. And our peak period is basically between, say, September through to March. And we got hit when the pandemic hit. That's, as I said before, that's everything. It was like a D-Day. Everything shut down. It wasn't our company, and it was global over the whole world. So, but I think the injection of some sort of funds is definitely vital to keep us afloat, because, and it's also gives the borders and stuff. From our point of view, when we're using for the touring bands with international waters and touring bands even locally, the promoters need some sort of certainty now to book the acts, because they can't book previously, as you heard, Blues Fest cancelled on the day prior to the doors opening.
Yeah, extraordinary.
So they'd already set up all the equipment. The stages were ready. The lighting guys have been in there the night before, programming all the lights. Catering's in, and people, all the food vendors have bought thousands and thousands of dollars of food. And what's going to happen to that? It's probably just going to get tipped into the bin. And have they got insurance for that and all that sort of stuff? Is the promoter got, is he getting backing to get refunded or get support to help all the contractors? Or he's just going to go, so sorry, so sad. This is the second time that's happened to Blues Fest, and how much money does he have in the kitty that he can sustain that? or he just says to the suppliers of all the production suppliers and everybody, sorry, I've got no money left. You can sue me if you like, and that's
Perhaps
there's
it's
no
the state
confidence.
government that needs suing.
Look, it's as Rocky said. This is it's across the board. It's an Australian thing because it's not just
I think
Australia. It's not just Victorian. It's every state needs the certainty for the bands and the acts and the expos. They all need to be able to travel interstate and
I
without
think-
any lockdown at one time.
what you say about the borders and that is for sure. If they can be open, I think the key to what you're saying is if they can be open safely. I mean, if they're not open safely and we're thrown back into lockdown again, then the whole process starts all over again. So we've got to manage it in a way that's going to allow what can happen without destroying the industry entirely again. And the only way to do that is by immediate support for the companies that are suffering.
Yeah.
The virus pandemic could go on for years.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is why, because the virus pandemic will be, we have to live with it. It's not going to go away anytime soon. The vaccine's going to take whenever it takes. So if there's like as we said, as I mentioned before, an insurance policy or something that people can go to, we do our best. We do we organise our events. Everyone gets involved. And but if disaster strikes and there is a health issue that the government has to act, then so be it. It acts. But then companies like us and exhibitors and organisers who've just spent so much money to hold this event is cancelled, we can get paid. And at least then we said, okay, that didn't happen. Let's move on. And we're still alive. So if you had some type of a scheme, an insurance scheme involved, that and plus the borders to remain open, that will do a massive help to the industry, to all industries, I believe. But some cash injection would be also nice.
Thank you.
The borders are key.
Thank you for that, Ms. McArthur. I might hand over to Ms. Lovell.
Thank you. Okay, I'd just like to explore what we've just been talking about a little bit more. And first of all, I'd like to ask you what your confidence level is at the moment. So, I'm planning for events, etc. What's the confidence level of the industry?
Well, I don't think there's a huge confidence, to be honest. As I said, we're sort of more down the food chain as a supplier in the supply chain, but the promoters trying to book the acts, book the bands, from hotels through to catering to security to the venues. I don't think it's 100%. There's not a lot of confidence just yet.
So would it be 30%? Would it be 40%?
It's hard to put a percentage
Hard
on
to
it.
put a percentage on it, but I think also the venues, a lot of the venues, some of the people I've talked to have venues. There's a very big segregation because some of the venues are classed with seated venues, and some of the venues are seated as standing room only. When you go to the standing room only, it changes the whole square per metre ratio, and there's seated venues they can put more in. So we deal a lot. We're very close ties with the Palais Theatre. We have, we're one of their preferred. We are the preferred supplier, not to say exclusive, but we
They have a capacity of 2,800.
as a full capacity, and they've got reduced down to well under 1,000.
Yeah.
I know they have been working to get those numbers back up, but again, the certainty for the promoters coming into the venue, there's no instilled confidence. So we've actually worked with the Palais Theatre, and myself and the sound company. We've worked to structure a way where it's basically a bums per on the seats per dollar.
Right.
So instead of saying to the promoters it will cost you $10,000 for lighting and sound, it might cost you, based on if you get 1,500 people come in through the door, then you pay X amount of dollars for that. And I think that's what we've tried to work, because they want to get people back into the venue as well. They're very keen. They've got their lease that they have to pay as well, and all the running costs of the venue. They've got their own staff, so they've got to try and promote the venue the best way they can to the promoters to say, instill confidence, come back to our venue. We want you to work. We want to get the gigs happening again.
Yeah.
So
also, Mr. Brazino seems very keen on an insurance type scheme, but you mentioned some sort of injection of funds. What do you think that injection of funds looks like? Is that a grant from the government, and if so, how much? Is it an interest-free loan, or is it the underwriting of your, your costs if an event is cancelled by the government?
Well, I think to go into another loan, from a business owner's point of view, it creates a real big, another load of stress on, and that
Not a
loan,
loan.
and that loan could be, it might
Especially if there's
go
no
out to
money
10
coming in.
years or something like that, and you're thinking, I've got to keep working to pay off this loan.
I think we need something similar to the JobKeeper thing that we had, where there's
From the state.
some sort of state input that's going to help support the employees and the company through the tougher period, whether it's the next 3 months or the next 6 months, until such time as the work is picking up enough for us to support ourselves, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later. There's lots of different ways you could do it. You could have a percentage of the company's overheads as a basis of the figures that you take, and whatever that percentage might be might help support them with their overheads. You could have
the kind of base overhead cost, yeah.
yeah, something along those lines. Or you could have perhaps for the employees, you could have a percentage of their full-time wages given to them so that they can come in and actually do works that are required to keep the company going, like maintenance. We could get a lot of the part-time staff in if they're given a percentage of their... it has to be enough to be able to support the company for 3 or 4 days a week so that they can come in and actually do the work that's required, the maintenance, to look after the equipment. It's been sitting idle for a year, and this is the sort of gear that needs regular overhauling, maintenance, lubrication. It's all moving parts and sophisticated electronics, all sorts of things. If we can get some of the casual staff, some of the road crew that have been out of work for a year, we can employ them with help from the government. At least they're working in the industry by working on the equipment they're used to, and it's giving them some form of purpose, as well as keeping ourselves employed and keeping the company going, so that when things do pick up, we've got the ability to go straight back into it and make sure everything's working the way it should. I think some form of help like that would be beneficial, not just for us, but again for once things are picked up, to make sure that we are that pivotal, that rock of, we are we're the musical event place
You're the
in the
magic
country
man.
as well as worldwide. I mean, there's people all around the world who look at us as the
Place to
music
be.
capital, the place to be. In fact, the music industry pre-COVID per year was making more money, inputting more money into the economy than all of our sporting together does. And we're known as the sporting capital of the world. So it shows how much is
But
involved
we're also
in the
the
music
events
industry.
capital, and like when you have a
Yes.
Pink here and she plays, how many concerts was it
Yeah.
in a row? Like there's always more concerts, performed in Melbourne than performed in any other state,
And
because
the
the crowds
performers-
turn out here.
Yes.
We love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
It's a great-
performers know that the quality of the production that they're getting in Victoria, and the people behind it have been doing it for a long time and are very good at it and passionate about it.
Yeah.
And so therefore that helps give Victoria the reputation that we have. And we don't want to lose that, because it's taken years and years and years to build it to what it is now.
Yeah.
And it's a huge part of our economy.
And building it back is maintaining people like you.
Yes.
Because we can't build it back without that expertise.
And not only for that reason, because people like us are the ones who are training the younger people who are coming into it and wanting to learn and be part of it. So you need that. You need the people with the experience who've been there and got the hands-on experience over the years to train the young people to do the job. And without
Yeah.
us there, if we all go off and find other jobs because we've got to pay our mortgage or support our family, then there's no one left to do it.
It's going to take years to...
Yeah,
Years.
absolutely.
It's not...
Yeah.
As the technology gets more and more, a lot of the younger guys coming through, as I was saying to Peter in the car, they're actually not just technicians, but they're actually becoming like computer people as well, doing IP addressing, networking, and
All
a lot of
sorts
the systems are all it's all very highly computerized and
It's all very specialised.
yeah. And when you go to the concerts, it looks like it's a basic thing, but technically behind some of this stuff, there is a lot
To
of
see all those
lot of
screens
stuff
putting up all
going
the
on.
video footage and all the lights doing what they're doing on top of the music takes weeks and weeks of preparation and a lot of people sitting down behind computers making it happen.
But just back to an earlier point, and the Palais, and just with the numbers. So they've got a normal cap, as it were, and fire and all those sort of things. You can't go over that.
No, of course.
But moving away from that, I mean, I was down there the other night, and there was along the top deck of the stalls, there was 4 couples, so 8 people along that huge sweep.
In the dress circle.
Yeah. So, you can't possibly work, the economics just can't work on those sorts of things. Have you seen this around the state with these types of ratios that just make it clearly?
Well,
and we're worse here, aren't we, than the other states? They're much
we
tougher.
are, definitely. There's some other venues, I think in Queensland and stuff, where the capacity's different. I mean, I haven't been out to those venues and stuff like that. So I'm only sort of speaking from...
It's hard really to compare because until this month, there's basically been nothing happening. There's been no work
There's
in
been stuff
Victoria.
happening elsewhere.
Yeah, and they've pretty much had a free, not a free rein, but they've had a fair bit of stuff coming through on a regular basis. So, I think just trying to get the venues to get opened up to let the bands come in, the acts come in.
Make it viable.
It makes it viable. The smaller pubs and stuff, and I know when we were watching before that the restrictions that the Victorian government is placing on having festivals and entertainment, it's very stringent, and it also is fluid too. It does change. I was speaking to a safety officer the other day about COVID safety plans and stuff, but things actually change on the day, and how do they manage that? So they've got to
give lead times and explain stuff. And have you had explanations of these things that they provided to you? Have you been able to communicate with the officers in, the towers?
Yeah, I mean, we have COVID safe plans and all that sort of stuff that we've had to...
You've been able to talk to them?
To the safety officers?
No, in the Department of Health.
Not me directly, not personally.
Yeah.
But we have done through safety officers and stuff that are implementing these COVID safety plans for our entertainment sector. So, but I know it does change very, very rapidly as well. Each day there's a new...
Safety officers are with the venue, or?
Well, they might be an external contractor to,
Okay.
say, if you do, say, to give an example, at Rochford, say, we did the Sounds
winery,
Better, the winery, we did the Sounds Better together. We did that show, and that was the first show that we've done for first outdoor festival, I think, for well over a year. Yeah. And the actual crew, the morale that was there, the crew that turned up,
very excited.
Everyone was just very, very pumped. There was
it's happening again.
There was no whining and carrying on, complaining, I'm too tired, and everyone was just very excited to actually go and do a gig, because that's what these guys do. We do. So, but in saying that, they might employ a subcontracted safety officer, a COVID marshal that will come on site, make sure everyone's compliant to the DHS, and everyone's following the rules. So with numbers, with seating allocations, all that sort of stuff too. Yeah.
So you haven't had experience with that engagement between those officers and up to the department?
Not me personally, direct. No.
I was trying to understand it.
Yeah. So there's like a third party that basically will oversee it. Yeah.
I just had, I might ask a question to Mr. Brezana, actually, because I think you're running a bit more of a bigger company, more nationwide company than, I guess, Face, although you guys are travelling nationally too from time to time. But what has been your comparison towards, I guess, the in terms of exhibitions, and are other states' exhibitions being held more broadly, or is it unique to Victoria? And what about, can you look at, I guess you're probably looking at the different your market segment internationally. What's happening with expos internationally as well as nationally? Is the effect the same everywhere you're seeing, or is it
definitely
nuances? What?
In New South Wales, for example, we started some work this month which is really good. Well, we actually did the Royal Easter Show we built, which was great. And so New South Wales for the last 2 months, it seems like there's a bit of a pickup and a bit of a good push. Same thing with Queensland. Queensland was doing very, very well. There was a bit of a setback with that 3-day lockdown because we pretty much lost all our April shows, which was very disappointing. But hopefully that was only a little setback, and Queensland can bounce back pretty rapidly. So at the moment in Victoria, we haven't built anything. We're building 1 or 2 small events at the moment in Victoria. What's happened in Victoria because of the multiple lockdowns, it definitely has had effect on confidence for organisers to actually organise. We also, at the beginning of the year, we did see some shows in Victoria still cancelling and postponing to later part of the year. So that has occurred. But one encouraging thing is that if everything's, if the situations is all in, the COVID situation, for example, New South Wales, we know there's confidence in the New South Wales not to shut down the borders very quickly. So we are seeing exhibitors supporting these shows, and we're seeing visitors. Like I think today or yesterday, we've opened up the Caravan Camping Show, and the line to get to that show is is out to the street almost. So visitors want to attend these events. So the events are alive and well if we're allowed to hold them. And that's what. So the exhibition and conference industry is alive and well, but we just need the opportunity to start building in Victoria, and it will happen. And we just need the support from a scheme or some sort. So people, like an insurance scheme, as we said, so people have the confidence to to start organising, and also suppliers like us who've where our debt levels are going higher and higher. We just need to stop those debt levels so we can continue on. But overall, it is a buoyant industry. We just need to get on with the job.
Thank you, Mr. Brasano. Committee members have one final question. Otherwise, we might wrap up for today because we've had you're our 6th witness, and it's been very important. And I really appreciate the candour from all committee members about the impact it's had on your private businesses. So I really do appreciate